think it's about time we start. Pew! Hello, welcome. Just getting my levels all situated on my end. Let me know how you guys are doing on your end. We see Danny Boy in the chat, and we got a couple people joining us from YouTube, a couple people joining us from Periscope. That's the other place people stream from. I'm not trying Twitch today because you guys know my computer blows. It's usually a pretty reliable machine, but right now it's giving me some trouble. Gave me some trouble last 2 weeks ago, and today it seems to be giving me a little bit of trouble as well. But you know what? Let's not dilly dally. Let's go ahead and keep this train moving, because today we're going to be talking about Fables Volume 1, Legends in Exile. Also, today was kind of fun. I got to hop on an episode of Dynamic Banter, so if you guys are a fan of that podcast, or you're familiar with it, or you don't even know it, and you want to listen to me do not this, there's going to be a new episode eventually, and I'll be on it with the two Dynamic Boys. I'm going to turn myself up just a little bit. I'm also going to hit this button.
Just for fun.
You can rate that review, or rate that effect in the comments down below. I want to see what you guys think. Yeah, we're on YouTube and we're on Periscope. So please comment in the chat just so I can know you guys are there. And then once I get one thumbs up, I'll keep it going. And if the stream looks like poop, you guys just let me know, and we'll go ahead and do it a different day. Figure it out. Make it work. Do it live. No, that's because that's what we're doing, and that's what's causing us the problems. So, yeah, we'll try our best. Let me go ahead and comment in the chat. Who's here? All right, we got a hey from Tono Q. Good. We're doing well. That's a good start. Let's see. Do we have anybody else queued up? Go ahead and get this going. We have a hey. Almost ready. Man, today's been a pretty good day so far. Can you guys hear me? Here. Wrong here. Hear me. Do that. We'll see how this goes, because if not, maybe I can just like record it and then do that. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, we got Warrior 10, we got Tono Q, a couple other people joining us, and I always appreciate when you guys are joining. Can hear for sure. Spencer Verb. Right, well, you know what? Let's not dilly-dally anymore. Let's go ahead and I'm going to start recording on OBS this time, and I think I can upload it to Instagram stories after. So if you guys want to watch it there, you can. So enough dilly-dallying. Let's go ahead and start the recording in 3, 2, boom. Now it's recording. All right, gang, we're talking about Fables Volume 1, Legends in Exile. I read this story in late 2016 going into 2017. That's how I capped off the year, by reading this story and reading it for the first time, which kind of sucks that I'm always Book Ape and Danny Boy and Warrior 10, 1010. Thanks for joining us. I'll do proper intros in a second and thank everyone for joining me. But yeah, no, I checked this out a couple years ago, but it was a bummer because it ended in 2015 with its 150th issue. And yeah, no, there were a couple spin-off stories for Fables, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let me go ahead and say thank you to everyone who's joining me live. Of course, if you guys would like, you can join me live on my YouTube channel, Periscope, sometimes Twitch, and sometimes Instagram. It just depends on how the bandwidth's doing on that day. But usually 1 p.m. PST on any of those places. Just search my name. You can probably find a live stream around that time. We got Danny Boy. We got Tony Q. We got Warrior 1010. We got Spencer Verber. We got Book Ape. Thank you guys for joining me live. I appreciate it. You guys, of course, can read all of the books I talk about on these shows over on Hoopla, which is a service you can hook up your local library card to, and you can get audiobooks, movies, TV shows, regular books, digital books, comic books, graphic novels, or you could try Comixology Unlimited, because they have a really good borrow system on that website where you could borrow. You're still paying for it, but there's a 60-day free trial where you could test it out and read books from every publisher: Marvel, DC, IDW, Vertigo, Image, Skybound, more, a bunch of good ones out there. But today we're talking about a Vertigo book, R.I.P. Vertigo, but now they're DC Black Label. So I guess this technically is a DC Black Label book that has nothing to do with superheroes. It is Fables by Bill Willingham, and also worth mentioning, the artist that worked most with Bill, even though Bill was the creator of the series, was Mark Buckingham. There we go. Now, this story began in 2002 in July and ran all the way until 2015 with 150 issues of Fables. And the story might be known by most of you if you're joining me right now. I don't know, maybe you've read one portion of it or you've heard that Once Upon a Time is a bit of a ripoff of Fables. The showrunners behind Once Upon a Time have mentioned that while they're using the same playground, it's a different story that they're telling, which that's fine. I watched Once Upon a Time actually a fair amount. I did have to give up near the end because I just couldn't after a certain point. Everyone's related to everybody, and it just started getting ridiculous. But first season, not bad. Thank you to Angel Santos for joining us live. Yes, so Fables, the basic premise is that all of the fairy tale creatures and characters that you're familiar with from all stories, all walks of life, even different cultures, exist in different worlds. Maybe some worlds are similar, they have crossovers, but in these worlds, thanks to magic, some of these characters are able to hang out with each other. Some characters actually span different stories, and I'll get into that in just a second. But basically they're all interconnected, and for some reason, all of these characters, or most of them, most of the ones that you know, live in an apartment building or in a surrounding neighborhood called Fabletown in New York City, and they've been here for a very long time. Even the animal characters, the anthropomorphic animal-speaking characters, do live in New York, maybe not in New York City, but in New York State, up at the farm. We'll get into that too. But our story starts out with Bigby Wolf, and he's one of my favorite characters. He is the big bad wolf, but thanks to a spell, he's able to look like a human being. And he is able to team up with Snow White, who's the deputy mayor of Fabletown, and try to solve the murder of her sister, or murder/disappearance/abduction/ attack, assault of Rose Red. That's what it is. Snow White, Rose Red. That's what it is. Initially, when I first read this story, Volume 1 of Fables, I did not think the intro really was appealing to me. I liked the setup, but the story that was being told, this murder mystery and exploring all the different aspects of Fabletown, didn't really do it for me. I felt like I was joining a story that was already running, which is usually a good thing, but I felt like I was missing a bunch of pieces as to what was exactly happening and what everyone meant to each other. You do learn it as it goes along, and this volume is only the first 5 issues, but the volume 2 is where it really clicked for me, and I was able to understand what was exactly happening and what everyone's motivations were and what they were doing in this real world. And as we learned in the first volume, we learned that there was a character named the Adversary, and the Adversary started conquering the different fairy tale worlds, starting out with the land where the lion's domain, which was clearly a nod to Narnia, but Fables is only really using characters that are in public domain. So right off the bat, they kill Narnia, they kill the Aslan the lion, and then what I've learned by doing some research for this episode is that the following panel is including hobbits. So then, of course, they couldn't use those because those are characters that are owned. They have not entered the public domain just yet. And so the Adversary is moving pretty quick through these different fairy tale worlds, and as a last-ditch effort, the fairy tale creatures run to a world that is devoid of magic. There's a little bit of magic, but overall there is no magic here. Any magic that is here is brought here by the characters, and they call it the world of the mundanes, or the mundies. That's what they call regular people. Every fictional world's got to have a name for people who aren't magical or aren't fairy tale creatures. We get to learn how their world works exactly. Most of the people live in Fabletown in this apartment complex, and they have everyday lives. They have things they need to do. We meet Beauty and Beast, and we learn that the curse still is affecting Beast, and anytime Beauty is upset with him, he starts to turn back into a beast, and it's the transformation stages. The in-between of the metamorphosis is the most difficult because he's not able to speak properly because his teeth and his talons are growing in. Which I love that kind of aspect. I love that Snow White and Bigby have to handle these like petty squabbles because for the most part they're living okay lives. They do miss their home world, but overall, it seems okay for our characters. Of course, minus the murder, which we learned that Rose Red was dating Jack Horner, which is the Jack of all stories, specifically Jack and the Beanstalk. Let me go ahead and make sure that I get all these characters correct, because there are so many that we meet throughout this entire run. List of Fable characters, here we go. And I do love that Bigby is able to look like a human being, and B still has some of his wolf abilities. He's able to transform like a werewolf. Immediately, right off the bat, when you see him transform, you're like, oh, this is cool. A lot of cool elements here. New York Fables. Yes, New York Fables. We want to read about Jack Horner. Apologies while I look for this. Jack. Also, Prince Charming. I'm a big fan that he is kind of screwed over multiple women. Not the fact that he screwed over women, but that fact that Prince Charming is the same Prince Charming in all the stories, like all of them. Uh, Old King Cole, Jack Horner. There we go. Jack of Fables. Yes. I'm just learning about his spin-off story, Jack of Fables, which I'm a big fan of. Sorry, Little Jack Horner, Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack and Jill, Jack Be Nimble, Jack Frost, Jack O'Lantern, and Jack the Giant Killer. There we go. Those are the characters that Jack embodies. But we learn because of this, Jack is more of a con man. There's a reason why he has so many personas like that, and he's able to dabble. We learn throughout the series he's dabbled with different magics. He's been able to pull different cons in different kingdoms. And right now, no one trusts him. And we get a good sense that he's kind of a dick. He's a bad person. And he may have had something to do with Rose's death or disappearance, but we're not really sure yet. But also, just some of my other favorite side characters are Boy Blue. Little Boy Blue, that means nothing to me besides the song and the phrase that I've heard. But as the story progresses, he becomes my personal favorite character from Fables. So I can't wait for, if you guys decide to read Fables, or if you guys have read Fables before, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that character, because I think he becomes one of the most badass characters in the entire story. And also the Frog Prince being the janitor. You kind of feel, he's a simpleton. You kind of feel, I felt bad for him at least. I'm glad that he has a good support system. He's got good friends. And he is loved by the people in Fabletown. But I do like that we get to learn more about him, and he's able to grow and change as a character. Because he deserves that. He's the more we learn about him, the more we learn that he is a prince, and he in every sense of the word. So the more we get to learn about him, the more I enjoy it. I do like that Snow White does take on a more managerial role. She's not the queen of Fabletown, but she basically embodies exactly what they need for that. Also, the king is absolutely pointless. The mayor of Fabletown is absolutely pointless. He's a very rotund gentleman that means well. I don't think he's a bad person, but he's nothing like Prince Charming, who's a pretty deceptive and manipulative character. But as this first volume goes, we kind of learn more about how the town was set up, that the fable creatures and characters have been here for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And actually, as the story goes on, to entice you if you're interested, we do learn how, in ways, they've affected American and the world history, but also how it's also affected them and how they live their lives, because they're living in a modern building, and they're doing that not only with magic, but also they like the modern conveniences that they're able to experience. They miss their home, but there's still good things that they enjoy about this world. Also, big fan of Bluebeard, the pirate. The more we learn about him, and the fact that some of these fairy tale creatures were able to use their fortunes from their kingdoms to be able to buy spells, because what else can they do? And some people aren't as fortunate, like Beauty and the Beast, even though clearly they're doing okay. Danny Boy says Fableton sounds good too. Thank you, Danny Boy. And we do learn that Rose is pulling a fast one on both Bluebeard, which looks like they got married in this. Well, they did get married, but not for good reasons. But I do like the way they bring a lot of these characters to life and what they mean to each other, because there's a fun aspect to crossovers. Like, that's why people like the Avengers, the MCU, Justice League. Also, the idea of even King Kong versus Godzilla, or the Universal Monster Universe, the Dark Universe, if that's ever going to happen in some form or another. The idea of certain characters and certain backstories having to come to a head with one another is really appealing. And so seeing all these characters that we grew up with as cautionary tales from Grimm fairy tales or what have you, and having them have to deal not only with regular day problems that we have, but also an overarching threat, and teaming up with other fables you might not be familiar with. Like in Volume 2, we get to learn more about the Arabian fable town, and that there are still Arabian fable worlds, that still exist, outside of the regular world where the rest of the characters live, and they're fairly protected, and they're still able to access other realms that have been conquered by the adversary. And clearly, it's set up that the adversary was supposed to be probably Peter Pan, but and also Bill Willingham has talked about that they believe that he was in public domain, but overseas in the UK, if I'm remembering the story correctly based on what I researched this morning very quickly, that the rights of the story were still owned internationally, so publishing this book would have been really difficult, so they had to change their plan of who the adversary was. And when we learn who he is, I still like the payoff, but the idea of an evil Peter Pan is really cool, and Once Upon a Time did take the liberty to play with that character and make him a darker, more sinister character and adversary in their story, but not the way that this adversary is. But the more we learn about them, the more interesting they are. Also, when we learn more about Pinocchio, I am a big fan of when he turned into a real boy, what that meant exactly for his character. He's kind of gross. He's definitely, I'll say this, a dated character in terms of modern day storytelling, but I still like what he has to offer to the story, especially as it progresses. And of course, there's going to be a point where we have to take on the adversary in some way or another. That's not set up, of course, in this first volume, which, again, I do recommend checking out the rest of the series because the art is amazing, the storytelling is amazing, and just the way that they're all able to interact with one another is just awesome. You do see a little nod to Baba Yaga, the witch from Russian folktale. Also, if you saw the Hellboy movie or if you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, there's mention of Baba Yaga usually running around in a house that has legs, sometimes chicken legs, sometimes other ones. Zach Dickinson in the chat says Peter Pan is essentially a kidnapper / conscriptionist for his anti-Hook rival. He's kind of like Peter Piper a little bit, luring children away to their magical land where they don't need to grow up. Does not sound great. But yeah, we do eventually have to take on the adversary in some way or another, but I don't want to say that because the more it unfolds and the more you learn about who that is, what they mean to the other people in Fabletown, and also it is a mystery. It is a mystery to the people who have been able to run away because, well, you figure out why. Because you do get an image of what they look like, but there's more than meets the eye. More than meets the eye. There we go. Lost Girl. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Is a comment in the chat right now. Also, there's some fun rules when it comes to the immortality of these characters, but because since they're so popular that in our world that does actually equate to magic for them, and they're able to stay useful for years and years and years. They are magical creatures, even if they look more normal compared to other people. And learning about each of their backstories and how they've intertwined is a real treat as the story progresses. And I can say safely that there are, of course, conflicts in a good story. Of course, there's conflicts. Tono Q says, I love the apartments. I like that, like a TARDIS, some rooms are bigger on the inside. Yeah, specifically the head office that are able to house a lot of the magical items that they don't want to get out. And the entire apartment building is enormous on the inside, and they're able to house a lot of the Fable creatures. Oh, Baba Yaga appears in Lost Girl as well. Oh, okay, there you go. A good shout out to Lost Girl. I've never seen it or read it. But yeah, just I feel like I'm getting a little repetitive, so make sure I'll wrap this up here. But there's something. Oh, John Wick. There we go. Is referred to. Of course, Baba Yaga is mentioned in John Wick as well. I don't see him in this story, but as it progresses and we get spin-off series, I do know that after the 150 issues ended, there was Ever After, which were further stories in the world of Fables, but that ended after 12 issues, and now with Vertigo being scuttled, I don't know exactly what that means for these characters. I know that there have been multiple times where we've heard that there was going to be a movie being developed, a TV show being developed outside of Once Upon a Time for multiple networks, and all of it sounds amazing every single time I hear it, because it's just, how are you not interested by this? I know that the Telltale game, the first Telltale game ever, is centered around Big B before the story begins for Fables, and it's a detective story, and it every time I look at it, it looks amazing. I have not played it. I've only played the Walking Dead Telltale series, and only the first chapter. So there's a lot more to that game and also Fables that would be well worth checking out. So maybe I'll check that out over this quarantine, which would be cool. But I do highly recommend this book to most people that haven't checked out a graphic novel before because it doesn't have any of the trappings of superhero comics. We do get to explore other genres, also other fables when it comes to Americana, which is very cool, or different European fairy tales, as well as African fairy tales and Asian fairy tales and Arabian fairy tales, and what they mean to the people, but also how those characters have interacted with each other. Also, at one point, we do learn about genies specifically, and how they're looked at as basically like WMDs, that they're basically like nuclear bombs. They're tricksters, and they will make your dreams come true, but always there's a price, and you don't know what that price is going to be, so don't open the bottle. And when we get to learn more about the princesses and their roles, there's some spin-off stories that follow Cinderella and other characters as well. And the more the story unravels, and the more that the Bill Willingham and his team are able to explore this world and what it means to our world, and how they're able to hide in it, and how they grow together, it's something truly special. And after reading this, I can't wait to read more of it. Just because there's not a single part of this that feels forced. It feels like a real passion project. So if you guys like reading things by passionate people, I recommend Fables. Also, if you just are vaguely interested in the idea of fairy tale creatures or Disney characters, keeping it a little vague, interacting with one another, I recommend checking it out. So if you do, let me know what you think on Twitter @SamBasher, or if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or on Periscope or Twitch, or on wherever. Let me know what you think of Fables, because I want to hear from you guys. I want to make it a conversation, and I want to hear from you guys what I should read next. I'm going to throw out my recommendation now for next week. Volume 1 of Letter 44. That's by Charles Soule, and I'm blanking on the artist name right now. Please forgive me in the comments. Letter 44, if you're a fan of, let's say, UFO stories. I'll keep it vague. You should 100% check out Letter 44. So if you're interested, please tune back in next Thursday at 1 p.m. PST, anywhere where my name pops up. And I do want to give a quick shout out to everyone who joined me live: Danny Boy, Angel Santos, Zach Dickinson. We have Fat Ass Production Studios. Thank you, Tono Q. And as well as, did want to make sure, Wario 1010, Spencer, Verbert, and Book Ape over at Periscope. Thank you so much for joining us live. There's a rough start to the beginning of this, but I think overall it worked out okay. I'll be rewatching the stream to make sure everything turned out all right. Also, I didn't even use the effects panel at all.
This is my voice.
And I'm going to turn that off. I don't want to abuse that, even though it is a lot of fun. Are they readable on Comixology, Sam? Yes. I will always plug Comixology Unlimited because I think it's a wonderful service. I think it's $7 a month, but right now they have a 60-day trial that you can test it out. You can read books from IDW, Marvel, DC, Image, Skybound. Lots of really good books on there. Valiant, if you want to read more about Bloodshot, the hit movie of the year. Not to dig on Valiant. I do like the character. I just wasn't a big fan of the movie. But yeah, please check it out. Next stream. Oh, Zach, thank you so much. That does help, but I appreciate it. And thank you to Book Ape. I'm on the free trial. It's great. Awesome. Yes, please go check it out. Letter 44, go read it, and let me know what you think of Fables. Enough dilly-dallying. I think I'm speaking in circles here. So I'm going to end the stream. Hopefully you guys tune back in next week, and I will see you then. I'm going to play some music to transition out of. Ooh, I can do this because I got a soundboard. Here we go. Let me go ahead and open that again. Nope. Open this one again. Come on. What is it? Well, while I vamp a little bit, I will go ahead and cue up this and say thank you again. If you like the scary effects, exhale. Sweetest tunes ever. You a big fan of the tunes? Captain Trashman, thanks. You're joining us right at the end here. Well, I'm going to attempt to turn on the music from here. So, anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Here we go.